In other news, one that is clearly a major mirror now impact as far as the Aadhar push of the government of India is concerned. There has been interim relief now that has come in from the Supreme Court for each one of us. The government has given an undertaking now, no coercive action over the linking till the 6th of February as far as your phone number, mobiles being linked to Aadhar, and the deadline for the banks, the bank accounts being linked to Aadhar, that being now pushed to 31st of March. The Supreme Court has further directed the banks, the service providers to specify this last date in informing each customer through SMSs and emails. The Supreme Court further says cannot no longer send messages on linking without mentioning all details accurately, in asking banks, telecos not to create unnecessary panic amongst people by messaging that their accounts and their numbers would be deactivated, disconnected if they don't link it with the Aadhar. A clear relief now for each one of us that has come in from the Supreme Court.
I think the Supreme Court directions are absolutely very welcome, and they actually represent the hopes and aspirations of the people per se. By Supreme Court clarifying, the Supreme Court is only reiterating what is the normal law of the land. You cannot take any coercive action against anyone till such time the matter is sub judice. And I personally want to congratulate Mirror Now channel for having taken up this issue for quite some time, and I've been repeatedly arguing that till such time the actual drawbacks in Aadhar are not appropriately addressed. There should be hiatus, there should be a current status quo, and it should not be made completely mandatory. But I think this kind of a direction is going to put to halt all these kind of panic messages that the service providers, banks are sending, independent of what's happening in the Supreme Court. I think people need to quickly get a message. You cannot come and create a atmosphere of fear and panic amongst users at a time when the apex court is still seized of the matter as to whether Aadhar is violating of your privacy or not.
Let's get in more details, more clarity on what the Supreme Court has just stated from our senior correspondent Meenakshi Bhanja with those inputs there. Meenakshi, does this mean that as a corrective measure now we are going to be receiving messages from our mobile operators as well as banks here that the deadline has now been pushed ahead and it's no longer going to be seen as a crisis of your account or number having been deactivated?
Well, Fair, I certainly do hope so, because this is the Supreme Court's oral instructions and very clear instructions to the government to get the telecom companies and the banks to comply. And clear message, because again, Fair, very quickly, for the sake of our viewers, the government was still trying to downplay these messaging, that all the citizens have been receiving ad nauseum, saying that these are mere oral submissions of the petitioners who are assailing Aadhar. But what is very interesting is one of the Honorable Justices in the Supreme Court who was seized of the matter, Honorable Justice A.K. Sikri, made this sharp retort to Attorney General, saying we all know what's happening, and I quote, we all know what's happening, we have also been receiving these messages, unquote. So that is the extent to which the Supreme Court is genuinely cognizant of what is happening on the ground. But again, Sir, remember, the government has also somewhere tapped into the mood of the bench, and therefore we have seen an early morning, late night affidavit of 110 pages that has been submitted ahead of today's hearing before the Supreme Court, where the government has shown willingness to extend the window till 6th of February for linking with mobile phones, and till 31st of March for linking with bank accounts. And this applies even for those people who are in possession of Aadhar card but voluntarily do not want to link. So, clearly this is a very serious issue that Mirror Now has been constantly highlighting and raising questions on, that in a sub judice matter which has not yet been tried and tested and subject to judicial scrutiny from all sides.
Actually, would it be fair to say that this kind of an undertaking that the government has been asked to give in the Supreme Court is also a loss of face as far as that unofficial insistence of linking your Aadhar with any working system, with the government slightly giving in and extending that deadline?
Indeed, Seher, this is a climb down of sorts. Remember, the government is still holding on to its original position about how Aadhar has been approved, tried and vetted and tested by the Supreme Court itself. But the fact of the matter is the primary ground of Aadhar's attack, whether or not Aadhar is indeed violative of right to privacy, has yet to be subjected to judicial review, because our viewers will recall it was on this ground that the Supreme Court itself had constituted a very powerful 9-judge bench which came out with a landmark epic ruling in August 2017 where privacy has been upheld as a fundamental right. So the Aadhar attack or the Aadhar scrutiny has to start afresh, Seher. That is very important in the backdrop of this judgment, and therefore when the scrutiny starts afresh, the judgment itself will be taken into account.
Referred to will without doubt have a bearing on the final verdict here on this. Yes, point well noted there, Meenakshi. Much appreciate you getting us those inputs.